I hope everyone can hear me. Fantastic. I'm very excited to be here, and I welcome everyone to Hashi Talk. My name is Karthik Lunkad, and today I'm going to talk to you about secure developer workflows with Vault and GitHub Actions. Before I kind of dive into sort of who I am and what the topic itself is, I want to first just tell you a story. This was about a time when Netflix studios, especially the security team, had to tackle two very contradictory goals. One, to support application teams moving really fast in their development, and two, increasing the overall security bar of, of their platform. And this was extremely challenging for them. So let me give you a little bit of background before we go into sort of the challenge that security team had to face. The situation was, this was about 2017. Netflix overall was experiencing not just rapid growth but explosive growth, and that had an impact on the studios team to be creating more and more shows for Netflix. So the studios team's vision was to create what they called studio in the cloud. And what it meant was to really have applications supporting every part of their business from pitch to play. So, with that in mind, the security team had been given a mandate to support them in this vision. There were two observations that the security team made. One, the various application teams had a lot of security things that they had to take care of. TLS certificates, how to do authentication, security headers, request logging, rate limiting, and many others. Along with this, they also had multiple checklists that they had to take a look at. And within those checklists, it would be different options based on if you're a new app or a legacy app, if you're using a Java app or a Ruby app. So there was just a lot of items and flowcharts that the dev teams had to think about. And similarly, for the security team, they had to support innumerous number of dev teams going through these checklists, figuring out what the right path is. The second thing they observed was when they compared teams that were able to move fast through the development cycle, they generally had a pretty strong authentication story for their architecture. And contrary to that, for all of the app teams that would end up having to go through a stronger security review, would typically have an incomplete or missing authentication system. So these are kind of like very interesting observations because they gave them a good idea of how they could go about tackling this problem or tackling the two contradicting goals they had. So the way they sort of went about it was, one, they identified what a paved road could look like, what would be possible in terms of killing the checklist in a way that simplifies the story for what the dev team needs to do. And finally, what the result of that was that they created made it extremely trivial to integrate authentication into applications. They partnered with dev teams to pilot it and get feedback. And once they were able to see that this was a pretty good solution, they scaled it to all the Netflix studio teams with a really compelling developer experience where they practically automated the work that any dev team would need to do to integrate authentication into apps. And over a period of time, they went from authentication to what headers that they needed to put to TLS certificates and many other pieces into the same component. And that made their overall experience for the dev team much simpler and also increased the overall security that every application was following. And eventually they got to a point where a team would start a new application and they could go from git init to a production ready, fully authenticated, internet accessible application in little less than 10 minutes. That's incredible. Why am I telling you this? If you take nothing away from my talk today and you're able to sort of just take these three takeaways, I would be very happy. One, security starts from your dev environment. It starts with the patterns we follow from a application development journey. Second, developer experience is the hack to adoption of secure practices. If you want security practices to be embedded as part of the application development journey, you got to start with an amazing developer experience. And that could mean you could be building a library, you could be integrating an IDE extension, you could be setting up like a self-service onboarding platform based on Backstage. It could mean various things, but it has to be something that is easy for developers to do and it can easily fit their workflows. And lastly, a lot of times, if we can enable good enough security practices for developers versus like no security pattern at all, that's way better. And that's good enough sometimes to at least get started. So, my introduction, I'm Karthik Lunkad. I am a product manager for Vault, focusing on developer experience and secrets management at Hashicorp. I've been in the space of developer experience for more than 6 to 8 years at this point, working at Pivotal and VMware before I joined HashiCorp. You can find me at this Twitter handle if you're interested to chat afterwards. So yeah, that's my background. So we spoke about sort of the overall kind of why developer experience matters in implementing security practices. For this talk, what I wanted to take a stab at was to really focus on the secrets management side of it, Vault, hence secrets management, and really kind of talk about the sort of the key developer workflows that could be easy for developers to leverage. Why am I talking about secrets management specifically? The number of increase in the overall data theft breaches over the last 2 years have been pretty incredible. Most of them have had a human element involved, and 9 out of them generally have web app breaches, and they're generally about stolen credentials. So there's a fair amount of conclusion that a lot of times credentials are the core source of security. So products like Boundary and Vault really kind of hone in on that problem. All right, so the agenda for today. We'll talk about sort of 3 key workflows. That's it. We'll keep it simple and we'll help you, especially developers, help you implement 3 developer workflows to how you can include secrets management into your applications. The first one is, it's, as I said, starting again, is a good enough patterns. Can I get static secrets into my .NET application? Second, want to get a little more fancy, can I put dynamic database secrets in my Go application? How do I go about retrieving those? And finally, from a CI perspective, how do I go about retrieving secrets from Vault into my GitHub Actions workflows? So with this in mind, let's get cracking. So the first one, static secrets into your .NET app. For this purpose, for this demo, what I'll use brand new OpenAPI based Vault.NET client libraries. This is something you probably have not seen before, so I'm super excited to demo this today to you. And the way we'll just show you this one is we'll authenticate using token-based mechanism and retrieve static app secrets into the .NET application. The security of it is decent. The fact that you're integrating into your application is good. The developer experience is pretty good because you can easily integrate into the application. And if you provide the right guidance in terms of code snippets, then you at least have a good place to go. I would say the getting started is okay, given it may take some time for someone to figure out what the sort of the right code snippets look like and things like that. Sometimes it's easier to you want to start with maybe a CLI based experience for integrating secrets management into the application workflow. All right, I'm going to go ahead and play the demo, which I made last night, not taking a chance with the demo gods. All right, this demo will showcase the ease with which you can authenticate and retrieve secrets into your .NET application using the brand new Vault.NET Client library. This is the library. This is the repository. This is available publicly. Please check it out and give us feedback. We'd love to get your thoughts on this library. All right. So the first step is to go ahead and create the cluster on HashiCorp Cloud Platform. You could very well also start a cluster in your own environment, or you could use Vault Enterprise based on what your cluster setup is. For the purpose of the demo, I've already created the cluster. The next step is to copy a token. This is for demo purpose again, but I recommend using one of the authentication methods as a way to log in. Open the Vault cluster URL and log in. I can see I have a secret engine enabled. I can go in and create a new secret. This is called .NET demo. Let's see if the demo password super safe secret is something that we can retrieve. Great. So I have saved the secret. The next step is to go into my VS Code. The next step is to write up your C# or your .NET application. One thing important to do here is to set the environment variable for the token as well as for the address. So I have already done that from my terminal. For purpose of security, I won't be showing those two steps, but you can imagine something of the style of export vault address equal to the URL and token similarly with the corresponding token. And using those two values as well as the namespace, because I'm using in the HCP Vault cluster, I now have performed the authentication for logging into Vault. The next step is to be able to read the secret. And for that, all you need is a simple Vault response object that will read the secret from the name of the path. Great. I have my code in place. It's time to test it. One other step that is needed to run this application is to make sure that you add the new NuGet package into your .NET application. And for that, you can run the command .NET add package Hashicorp Vault. Awesome. So it looks like that package has been added. Now I can go ahead and run my application. Great. I can see that the super secret key and value were stored correctly, and I can see them here. So that's the first demo. Thank you. All right. So that's the first demo. This demo will. So moving on to the second pattern. All right. This demo. Sorry about that. Okay, the second pattern is how do I go about using dynamic database secrets in my Go application? For those that may not be familiar with dynamic database secrets, database secrets are something that are retrieved specifically when you request for them from Vault. So these credentials were not generated before time, and whenever they are generated, they have a limited time to live and would generally require a particular lease and renewing that lease so that you can have continued access to those secrets. The security for those is higher for sure. They can be slightly more difficult to use because you do want to make sure that you're renewing the lease. You have sort of the pattern set in your application to manage those credentials and make sure that once their TTL runs out, you're able to sort of request the new ones and your connection and your application does not get impacted. For this demo, what I'm going to go ahead and use another new client library for you. We just made the OpenAPI-based Vault Go client library available publicly. So once again, would love your feedback on that. And then what we have already spun up is a Postgres instance and so forth. So you'll see that further in the demo. Moving on to the second demo. All right, moving on to the second demo. This one is a little bit more advanced. We will showcase how you can authenticate and retrieve dynamic secrets for your database into your Go application. And we'll be using the brand new OpenAPI-based Go client library from Hashicorp Vault. And so for this demo, I have already spun up a Vault cluster locally, as well as created a Postgres database instance. So we'll log into Vault and just see that there is no database engine configured right now. We'll go to our VS Code and run a setup script. The setup script itself does just a couple of things: enables the database secrets engine, creates a role within Vault, and maps that to or connects that to the database instance. All right, so let's go back to our Vault UI and see if we are able to see the new database engine. I can see it, great. And I can see that there is a connection to Postgres database, and I also see there's one role created. Fantastic. At this point, we can go into our Go application. And as it was with the .NET application, I have already set the environment variable for Vault, as well as set the token required to authenticate to Vault. With that in place, I can go ahead and read the credentials using this piece of code, which is client.secrets.database read credentials. And the main thing that I pass here is the role name. And with that information, I can go ahead and get the database username. For the demo purposes and security purposes, I will not showcase the actual password. Great. With this in place, let's go ahead and run the application. One step that you want to make sure you do before you run the application is pull the new Go client library into your Go application. So the way I could do that is go get and the specific Go Vault client Go repository. All right, with that in place, I'm going to go run my file, run my Go app. Great, and I can see that it created and printed out a username. That's the second demo. Thank you. All right, so that concludes the second demo. Let's move on to the third one. That is, how do you go about managing secrets in your GitHub action workflows? This will be the third and final one. So GitHub Actions has definitely gained a lot of popularity in terms of how as becoming kind of the more popular mechanism to set up your CI. In this demo, I will be using basic authentication in terms of token-based authentication, but you'll see that the Vault GitHub action has a few different types of authentication methods. The security could have been like almost close to full if we used the OIDC-based workflow. But because we're using token-based workflow, it's slightly more insecure. Developer experience is great because I don't have to specify a ton of things in my GitHub action workflow. In terms of getting started, yet again, it's just something that new users or developers may take a little bit more time to understand the pattern itself. All right, with this, I will play the third demo. All right, for the third and final demo, we'll showcase how you can retrieve secrets from Vault within your GitHub action workflows. And for this, we'll use the Vault GitHub action created by Hashicorp. There are a various set of authentication methods that this action supports, from JWT to app role to token-based, GitHub, and so on. For this particular demo, we'll use the token-based workflow to authenticate as well as retrieve secrets from Vault. And the way we can get started on that is we've created a local instance of Vault server and created a secret within Vault. Next, we'll go ahead and look at the actual workflow file. In this workflow file, what we're doing is we trigger this workflow and upon every time there's a commit to the repository. The second step is to retrieve secrets from Vault by using the Vault URL and token created within GitHub Actions secrets. And finally, referencing the specific secret name within Vault. If this succeeds, then the workflow will build my application's Docker image. All right, with this in place, let's go ahead and actually test this out. Just for demo purposes, I'm going to provide an incorrect secret name, and let's see how that impacts the actual workflow. Let's see if it kicks off a new build. There we go. And it failed because it could not find that particular secret. All right, let's fix it and see if that leads us to a success scenario. And this time it went ahead and succeeded, and the overall build as well succeeded. So this is a short demo of using Vault to GitHub Actions with Vault. Thank you so much. All right, those were the 3 patterns. Once again, the big takeaways that I want everyone to take away is start with the security patterns in your dev environment. Find a way to provide really strong developer experience for dev teams to be able to adopt secure practices. And finally, good enough security practices is a better place than none of them at all. Thank you so much for your time. I'm around for any questions, whether that's live or in YouTube chat. And yeah, thank you so much for coming and attending this call. I hope you have a great rest of the Hashi Talk. Thank you.